Welcome to Flashpoints. I'm Jeff Pegues, joined as usual by CBS News senior national security analyst Juan Zarate.
Thank you, Jeff.
Let's talk about the Taliban and the negotiations with the Afghan government. The Taliban confirming earlier this week that Mullah Omar has been dead for 2 years now. How is it possible that that stays quiet for 2 years?
Well, it's a remarkable revelation, in part because Mullah Omar has been seen not just as the leader of the Taliban, but as perhaps the leader of this broader global movement of jihadis. Keep in mind that al-Qaeda had pledged allegiance to him when they were embedded in Afghanistan. So, to have a leader of that capacity, that role, sort of dead for 2 years and for nobody to know is quite an achievement. That said, he was quite secretive. He was also protected by folks in Pakistan. And so keeping that quiet was doable given the fact that he was largely secretive about his movements, his communications for a number of years. And so there's already kind of a cloak of mystery and lack of information around him anyway. And
was a lot of that strategic, with the talk of the negotiations with the Afghan government, was some of that strategic?
On the part of the Pakistanis, I think so. I think there are a couple dynamics to keep in mind here. One is that the Taliban, in many ways, is a conglomerate of a variety of groups and interests, and you've had over time different leadership nodes emerging. For example, the Quetta Shura Council, which has been the center of gravity, but you've had elements in Afghanistan, you've had the political element of the Taliban in Qatar, and so you've got different factions with very different interests to play. And the Pakistanis, I think, want to see negotiations proceed, want to shepherd those along, and the Afghan government clearly wants to see that happen. And so there's a desire to get people at the table who want to see a deal. And that is not necessarily what all of the elements of the Taliban leadership want. And that's why the succession has been so interesting and important. Mullah Mansour, who was Mullah Omar's deputy, is now slated to be the leader of the Taliban. But that is not a great decision on the part, in the view of many in the movement.
Why do you think, in the view of many in the movement, that's not a good decision?
One, some of the leadership wanted to see Mullah Omar's son take over. So part of this is personality. Part of it has to do with lack of faith in the leadership of Mullah Mansour, perhaps not as capable or charismatic or as influential, obviously, as Mullah Omar. Part of it has to do with the fact that Mullah Mansour does want to negotiate, or appears to be in favor of negotiations, whereas others in the Taliban leadership do not. And so that is driving some of the divisions. And really, the Taliban was already under stress and having trouble sort of keeping cohesion. This is only going to amplify that and create further divisions and pressure, by the way, from groups like the Islamic State, which are trying to make inroads into Taliban territory and take some of their fighters and alliances away.
So what do you think of the future of these talks? They're still obviously at a fragile stage now.
Yeah, it's very hard to tell. I think talks will continue because I think there are going to be elements of the Taliban, and especially if Mullah Mansour is able to ensconce his role as the leader of the group, he will bring people to the table. Whether or not that means that there can be a sustainable deal, and whether or not the entire element of the Taliban network, the Haqqanis and others, follow along is a bigger question. But I think there's political momentum around getting people around a table. That will happen. Whether or not it's meaningful is really still up in the air.
Yes, we will see where the talks go from here. For Juan, I'm Jeff, and that is Flashpoints.